Good morning. We're going to try this again. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Code Noobs Saturday morning live stream. I think we're live now. Yep, I hear myself. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
We are live. How are you guys? Happy Saturday, April 26th at 9:01 a.m. to you both, Randall and
Yeah,
Danny.
happy Saturday. The
Happy
highlight of
Saturday.
my week coming to meet you guys and then hang out with the with our group afterwards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I can't believe it's
I
already
missed
the end
it
of April,
last
too.
week. I was like, I know we had some things going on, and I was at a conference. Danny was feeling pretty sick.
Very sick.
And
Yeah, I was not
And I
getting
just had
my
my feet
calls.
up on the desk all by myself.
Randall was just bored, doing nothing. But yeah, I know. I missed our Saturday, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We're back here. How was your week? How was I have a lot to talk about this week.
Wait, Russell, there's something different about you.
What?
Are you a vibe coder?
Oh, yes. You couldn't tell by my glasses. I'm full on vibe coder now.
Good morning, Eric.
I don't actually type anymore. I just speak into a microphone and
you have to have cool shades for that.
yeah, because I don't want the screens to blind me. Yeah.
That's true. Because the coding happens so fast, it could burn out your retinas if you don't wear
seriously.
glasses.
For real. Yeah, I had quite a week. I mean, I'll share a little bit before we get into the topic.
Well, it was either you're a vibe coder or you're playing for the 1990 Oakland A's.
Yeah, right?
MLB
That's
star.
what we were talking about before.
It's
It looks
actually
like that.
both. Like, what if that was my job? I'm both an MLB player and a vibe coder. I never have to take these glasses off ever.
Why couldn't you
Never.
be, though? Yeah, you just wear them all the time.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, the only thing better would be if they had like the flip up thing too.
Yeah, I wish that would be.
Hey,
sweet.
remember this?
But
Oh
what
my
you
God.
what you may not realize is that these are actually, I don't know which side it's on, but these are actually Vercel glasses.
Oh,
So
hot dog.
yeah, they're official vibe coding glasses because they're sponsored by Vercel and Next.js. So
That's
yeah.
sweet. You gotta look the part.
yeah, it's pretty sick. And so that's a great segue. I got these at React Miami, which was a really I am surprised by how high quality this conference was. I know like it's Miami and like, Miami's all like bougie and whatever, but just the community, the vibes there, the how smooth it went, like everything was spot on. I had an excellent time, met a lot
That
of
is impressive, though, because like just organizing stuff like that and like having it run smoothly makes the world a difference, and not everybody's good at that.
Yes. And it's very tough to do. I mean,
Yeah.
organizing, like, so that was like my role. I volunteered, which if you guys are considering going to a coding conference, especially your first one, I would definitely recommend volunteering. It gets you like so much more access, gets you like introduced to people. And also if you're going on your own, you sort of like have a group of people that you already know because there's other volunteers. You get to meet them before like everybody shows up. And I think it was just a great experience overall.
Well, like you said too, it's also nice too because it gives you're guaranteed to meet the most important people there, namely the speakers and stuff, and get one-on-one time with them, which is amazing,
Yeah, exactly. So my role was to be like the speaker wrangler for both days. So I know it's a very cowboyish name.
Yeah, lasso.
Yeah, I had a lasso and a bear trap, and so I had to basically walk around the conference and find the speakers, make sure they were all set up with their mics and everything, and then bring them backstage before their speech, which was actually a lot of work because the speeches were generally only like 25 minutes maybe. And so
that surprised me that they were that short because that means you must have been running around a lot.
There's another conference coming up around here, and I actually could speak at it potentially, but they have two different options. They have like a 15-minute and a 45-minute. And I honestly, like, 20 minutes seems like not that much, but it is quite a bit of time. Like,
45 minutes is a long time to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so it was really cool. I got to meet all these people from like working for huge companies. I got to speak with a lot of people who work for FANG companies and ask them some like really deep questions, which was really interesting. to hear their answers. And yeah, overall, it was just an amazing conference. I met a lot of people. And then this week, one of the things that I, struggled with was finding a local community around me, because I think after COVID, all of these meetups sort of like died off, and they're just starting to be revived, I think, a little bit. But I struggled for a while finding people in the area. And I just found, what I realized is that the tech scene or coding scene here is very fractured. So it's like there's a bunch of people, but all of us live about a half hour apart from each other. Literally, like in each town that's half hour apart, we all live there. So I think that's part of why there's not like this one central meeting place. But I did meet a lot of amazing people from this area. And as a result of that, I was introduced to another group here called the South Florida Tech Hub, which is growing. And I attended one of their meetups this week, which was really awesome too, because I got to meet a whole bunch of other people. So pretty awesome. If you guys haven't done so, like, meeting people in person is absolutely the best way to find a job. Like, all these people that I talked to, if I was like, hey, if you're ever looking for somebody, absolutely, there's like an in there. It's so much different than being, going on LinkedIn.
You know them. They know your face.
Right.
They know your name.
Yeah.
They've talked to you. Like, they already know. Like, it's so many things that like make it hard to get your foot in the door usually, right?
Yeah. And if you guys haven't seen, inside the Facebook group or on my Twitter, I also posted just 10 takeaways from this conference. And that was really one of them, right? Is that you get such a better connection with somebody by sitting in front of them for 5 minutes and talking about anything than you can for speaking to somebody online for hours and hours and hours. You just don't build that same connection. So
that's what's funny too. You don't even have to talk about code.
Yeah,
you
like,
can talk about food
like tacos or
whatever.
Yeah, it's true.
It's funny.
And it's interesting to see, like, you get this bigger perspective of what's going on in the tech industry because you're talking to people from all over different companies working on different projects, and you get to see like some interesting stuff, right? For me, like, I had this perception like React is sort of like not dead, but like it's going out the door. But this conference, like, when I say React, I mean specifically React, not like I thought like, hey, Next and Remix are sort of the next take on React, and not many people are using just pure React anymore. But believe it or not, there's a lot of people who are, and for good reason, because they've been using it for a certain amount of time, and like,
but they already have it set up
over.
where it's React front end, and they're just using that, and
but pretty interesting. I mean, lots of amazing speakers from all over, and I've talked to a lot of them, so we're gonna try to get a bunch of them on the show here, and that way we can ask them your questions, what you guys are curious about, and you get to meet other people, not you Danny and Randall. I mean you, the audience members. So,
well, we get to too.
You do too, yeah. With that said, you guys want to talk about today's topic for a little bit?
For a little bit.
Just
what is this AI thing?
What is this AI thing?
Today's
topic, we're talking about what are MCP servers, and are they a game changer or a time waster? And if you've been,
well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I was just talking with someone earlier this week, and they have a business, and they're diddling around with AI just like everybody else. And they find these
I'm not
new
diddling
tools.
with AI.
I know, right? Should I say that they've been docking with AI?
Yes,
What's the correct terminology?
I think using.
So anyways, yeah, they've been using AI. But like when the new stuff comes out, so like like a lot of us, a new tool comes out and they want to do it
every 4 minutes now.
Yeah.
Literally.
And basically, as soon as the new stuff comes out, they're dumping all of their company data on it.
Oh my god!
Training all of their company data. Yeah, and he's talking about that, and I'm just like cringing inside, just like, oh my gosh, like, just throw the thing in like a garbage fire. My goodness.
Well, that is risky too, because that's all your data nowadays is everything. To just like to go into this stuff without really understanding it is kind of insane to just expose yourself.
And it's just so that he doesn't have to write presentations anymore, and he doesn't have to do like
Oh my God. So
the hard work
is he
there.
dumping like sensitive data into it, or just like company
I
like
I think he
proprietary
I think
data?
he is dumping a lot
Like
of stuff in it that
anything?
doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
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 I mean, maybe he's withholding some of it, but it just seemed like he had these tasks that he needed to get done, and he was just throwing whatever was necessary
Well,
to get them done into
well,
there.
that's what's interesting too, is I think when people don't understand it, they don't even really understand which data they need to put in these things to get the results they need. So it's like you're just doing like a kitchen sink type approach of throwing everything in, which is dangerous too, because now it's all exposed.
Not to
Yeah.
mention, another thing that I was talking about with him is like back in the day, like I remember a year ago when I was using AI, it would hallucinate, which means it would come up with a fake answer.
Hmm.
And like I knew that it was wrong. I was like, that's very clearly wrong.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's hallucinating, and I have a very hard time picking it up because it's very convincing, the hallucinations that
Yes.
it has
I read
nowadays.
an article that there's this word appearing in a bunch of scientific journal articles, and it's not even a real word, but it's been appearing a lot because they've all been using AI to help write
Oh
these
my
articles,
God.
and it's been
That's
using this
funny.
one word that it made up. And like
Uh,
it's they found it and like researchers found like I forget how many articles, but a lot. Like enough that like,
I
it's
wonder
pretty
if
funny.
I wonder what that word is if you like put it into AI and you're like, what does this mean? If it'll come up with an answer, it'll probably be hallucinated answer, I guess. But
Or it'll go on the web and
it
find the article.
yeah,
it's crazy stuff because that's how it's trained on the like internet.
yeah,
So there was there was a thing back in the day where like one of the tokens they had these like really long tokens, and there was like magic carp or something, it's not a solid gold magic carp or something like that. I forget the exact token what it was, but there was a whole bunch of them, and they would just show up all over the place because basically AI just scraped a whole bunch of Reddit forums, and so it picked up these like things from Pokemon and whatever,
yeah.
and that became this like it was a token that would just break AI.
That's
Like you could just
funny.
write it in there and it would just break the model. I think it was like 3.5 or something.
That's why these models need sanitized data to train on because I remember reading a little bit about some early models of ChatGPT that were like kind of scary because they just let them go on Reddit data and they turned into like within a week or something they turned into just like extremely racist like
Well, in early
models
trials,
like
yeah, early trials, they were trying to figure out different ways of like training them better and having like they've even tried using user input to train, and that was a mess, a nightmare, because
yeah
then you can direct it wherever you want, right? Yeah, it's interesting. I think this is one of the things like as developers too, like what you were saying with sanitizing, even sanitizing user inputs too, and making
yeah
sure that they're cleaned up before you send them to get a response is important too, to protect yourself from some of the security risks, but also to get the best response possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, we're talking about security here, and I know this relates to MCP servers. So, let's explain a little bit about what an MCP server is, how you would potentially use this to improve maybe your
And then
productivity or
how
your
you would abuse
workflow,
it.
and then how
Yeah.
to keep yourself safe and sort of put a condom on your MCP server, if you know what I'm talking about.
Well, what does
While
MCP
while you're
mean?
diddling,
Yeah,
Doc.
while
Yeah.
you're diddling
While
with
you're
it,
diddling.
use protection. Um, so MCP, that's a great question, Danny. It stands for Model Context Protocol. And so we've heard this word protocol before, or you probably have heard it before when we're referring to like HTTP or HTTPS or TCP IP, right? Any other protocols you guys know of?
There's tons of
There's tons of them,
protocols. Yeah.
Isn't there the Born protocol?
yeah, that's
Isn't there
and the
literally
Born
like
Born
there's like the
identity.
ultimatum.
dude, there's the USB protocols,
Yeah.
there's the literally any kind of
So
tech stuff that's
protocol
connections and stuff.
essentially just means it's a standard for communication, right? It's like, hey, your browser wants to talk to a server. We do that through TCP IP. And it's just a way that we standardize how that information is structured so that both parties understand what the hell is going on, right? And so MCP servers are a protocol, right? That's the last word is they're a protocol. They're a standardization for a way that two things can talk to each other. And what are those two things? They are the model and the context, right? So your model is the actual language model that you're using. That could be Claude, ChatGPT, whatever you want. And then the context is basically the context window is the data that you're feeding into it. And so what MCP servers are allowing you to do is essentially pull context from other resources on the internet without having to write an entire REST API to access those, right? So you can think about like, hey, I want to be able to prompt my ChatGPT or Claude to check a Google Drive sheet or something like that for maybe new customers and give me a report. I can do that now without having to write a REST API that interacts directly with Google Drive API. They have created an MCP server, which is a lot easier to implement. It's basically
Well,
just
it's
a
the
few
same.
lines
Yeah,
of code.
it's the same as like if you go on ChatGPT and you're using it and you want it to have you click web so it has access to the web, right? You're
Right.
now changing that context so that now it has a new tool it can use to then,
Exactly.
yeah, give it
So these are
responses
like
better.
specialized tools that everyone can write. And so, you know, I struggled for a while to understand, number one, what the hell MCP servers are. I think that's probably the cleanest explanation I've heard, honestly. And I'm surprised I was able to even explain it that easily. But
They
yeah,
always make it more opaque than it needs to be, I swear.
yeah.
Like, you know,
And I
and like,
struggle to understand like what the use case is for it, but I do see some now, so I'll explain that. But I don't want to cut you off, Danny. What were you
oh no,
saying?
I was gonna say, yeah, it's interesting because like when I was reading about them early on, like the model context protocol itself, like that's also just how you handle context. That's all it means. It's like
Yeah,
just the rules for how you handle context, how you manage it so that you know you're not getting like huge windows, you're staying within limits, all that stuff. And this is just an extension of it, right? You're just adding like other features in basically. And especially with agents and stuff, and now these abilities to use so many different tools along with the just the basic LLM,
yeah,
like it's getting, I think it makes sense to start talking about this. And with companies and stuff, you know, there's proprietary data and stuff they might want to access, user information, like you said, right? Products,
yeah,
stuff like that, that would need to be somehow accessed when the model is working and interacting with a client.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. I think you're dead on. I think that for me, there's two main use cases I see with this. Number one is if you're just using this as a non-developer or as a developer, but you know, in this case, I'm talking specifically about anybody can use it this way. Is if you use things like the Claude Desktop or other LLMs that allow for MCP server integration, you can integrate these tools to, you know, supplement your workflow. So let's say you're a business owner and you know, you do like cold outreach, right, for marketing. So you could have, you know, you could connect this to either your CMS or maybe just like a Google Drive spreadsheet of, I don't know, like leads or something like that. And you can prompt your AI for different things about those leads, like which leads have I not called in a while, or which leads do I need to follow up with? And it can directly access your Google Drive. Now, that's one example. You can do it for a bunch of different tools, right? And there are limitations to this. I mean, I'm pretty sure depending upon what LLM you're connecting it to, you can only connect like a certain number of MCP servers, but usually that number is pretty high, like 40 or something. You don't really need a ton more than that, but you can see how there's like potential here for, you know, the average person to make their workflow easier, faster,
Well,
more
I think
efficient.
we're also hearing a lot about this too now, I think, because it's extending these models in important ways that
Yeah.
makes them more precise and also just more efficient, but also more relevant.
Yeah.
But also with with the rise in like all these agents and the development of agents, that
Yes.
the protocol also becomes really important too, because it becomes a way to, you know, as the agents are making choices about which one to call and stuff like that, and which tools, this is being used a lot to connect different services and different resources.
Yeah. And it's a standardization, so things won't break as
Yeah,
frequently, hopefully.
hopefully they won't break as
um,
much.
but I think, you know, the reason why we as developers are hearing so much about MCP servers is actually because they can integrate well with things like Cursor and Windsurf and other AI coding IDEs. And so I think this week was the first time that I was like, this makes a lot of sense. So,
Isn't that funny when that happens?
yeah. So this week I was rebuilding my portfolio website, and I I was using Supabase, right? So Supabase is just a back-end tool that you can manage like database auth, things like that. And when you're coding it, when you're vibe coding in Cursor, and you're asking it to change things like your schema, it can't do that, right? It can't go to Supabase and change anything, right? It can only change the code that's in the IDE. And so this is
restricted it's restricted to the local files there.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so let's say, like, for example, one of the things I wanted to do was change the order of the portfolio projects that I have on my site. And so in order to do that, I had to add a new field to this row, right, to this table, for order. And in order for me to do that, I have to go on to Supabase and write an SQL query to add a field to that table.
You had to do work yourself?
Oh my God.
It's unbelievable.
You had to open up a page and type
my
stuff?
my
Take
pointer
those
finger
glasses
is
off.
getting weak. Yeah.
Dude, nobody's going to be
real.
able to type soon.
So that is like one of the best use cases, right? Because now I could connect a Supabase MCP server to my Cursor and be like, instead of me adding that, you do it. And it will be able to do that.
And Supabase has their own, right? That they offer that you can use.
And
correct?
a lot of so I will say this too, like, because it's so new, a lot of MCP servers are sort of fragmented out on the internet. Many of them don't work well. So you do kind of have to be careful. I will drop, I guess after this in the description, I'll drop a link to a GitHub repo I found that's like awesome MCP servers. And there's a lot of great ones in here, but also just if you're going to like integrate with something that's like large enough, like Google Drive or something, just look for the MCP server and you'll probably find a somewhat official one or one that somebody's created that's sort of like,
I was going to say, yeah, I would definitely look for, like, if you can, like, official ones, because this is also something to be careful about, right? It's like anything else where you can also have bad actors, and you can also have, or just stuff that's not updated right or not done correctly, and you're going to integrate it, and it might cause problems.
You mentioned that, Danny, and I just did a little bit of research on these in terms of like the security aspects of it. And so apparently these MCP servers can change after you've already started using them.
Yeah.
And essentially I'm not saying that they are, but it's possible and permissible for them to basically be adaptive malware, where you download or start using an MCP server that seems legitimate, like something that, I don't know, finds whatever in your Google Drive. Yeah, exactly. Something useful like Grindr that just tells you when you're close to other people. And but anyways, after that it could change and it could just download all your passwords or search for any like Bitcoin wallet addresses or on your computer or do
dump
like
ENV
different stuff like that
or something.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's one of these things where like AI is awesome and it's advancing very quickly, but at the same time it's something where you want to be very, very cautious where you're diddling. And where you're sticking your diddle.
Well, that's why I think like if you're
I love the analogy.
If you're using these for the first time, sticking with like official ones from like Google offers one or Supabase offers one, like those are going to be likely to work and safer because the company wants it to work well. They want developers to use it. They want it to make their lives easier. Like they recognize the need there.
They're going to be the more secure versions at the moment.
Yes, but just going on and just grabbing anyone.
Not totally secure, but the more secure.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, we were talking, Danny, you were talking before this thing started about how there are new jailbreaks that'll break all the models. Like it used to be where you needed a different jailbreak for every single model, but apparently some researchers at one of the big Ivy League universities now found a prompt that breaks all the models. So it's like, that stuff is out there and it's kind of like, makes you think.
So I was just looking at this repo for awesome MPC servers. You can just search that and you'll find it. It's by like Punk Pie or something like that. But they have it organized by different sort of categories. And I'll read a bunch of them, but the one that was interesting, I just clicked on security because I was curious because we're just talking about it. And the first one on the list is 1Password MCP server. So basically you're connecting your LLM to your password manager. And that seems a little scary to me. Now, here's the thing is the idea of like using one of these is not for like a production app. Like I mean, I guess you potentially could, but
well, no, it
I
would
think
be though
there's
in certain, like if you're a business or something, it would be production that you'd be connecting it. Like if you needed
well,
to access like
so the thing is like one of the things that I've read a while ago, and I don't know if this still stands, but it's not a RESTful, like MCP servers are not RESTful. In other words, they have to have a streaming connection, right? So you have to be like on a chat that's streaming back and forth. And so I think, from my understanding, the main idea here is that there's some sense of like security in the user, like the person who's using the LLM is authenticated or authorized to basically use this, right? You're not like creating a LLM chatbot and then connecting your one password to it and exposing that to the public for people to prompt, right? Because that gets dangerous. But when you start connecting a bunch of these together, I can see how there could be, malintent there. Like, hey, if you create an MCP server that's malicious, I can prompt the LLM to pull passwords out of my 1Password MCP server, right? And that's a little bit dangerous. So anyway, I think really at this point, the idea is just be cautious with this stuff. Don't connect anything that's like compromising, and just really understand like what you're using it for. Is this really necessary too? Because I think, you can just add bloat to your LLM too if you're like just connecting all these servers that you're not. Because also the other part of this is that your LLM will make choices which servers to use based on your prompt. So if you're loading it up with MCP servers just to have fun with it, I mean, do you? But like, you're going to ask it a prompt and it's going to search through all those servers and maybe potentially use something it shouldn't be using. So just be aware of like how you should be using it. But I did want to just read some of these so that you have an idea of like the different ways that these could be used. And I don't think we mentioned this before, but there's basically two things that you can use an MCP server for: either a tool or a resource. So if you want a tool that's going to like do some calculation or something like that, or get you the weather, or a resource, which is like returning information. So you're connecting it to a database, a file system, something like that. So I'm going to read these really fast. You can check them out at Awesome MCP servers, but here's an idea of the types of things that you can connect. And these are general categories, so you can imply and look through them on your own if you like. But aggregators, art and culture, browser automation, cloud platforms, code execution, coding agents, command line, communication, customer data platforms, databases, data platforms, developer tools, data science tools, embedded system, file systems, finance and fintech, gaming, knowledge and memory, location services, marketing, monitoring, multimedia process, search and data extraction, security, sports, support and service management, translation services, text-to-speech, travel and transportation, version control, and other tools and integrations. So you can see like a lot of those assume some sort of like authentication or authorization to be using this, right? Like most of those are just data that you don't want to share publicly. So yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy that they just keep coming out too. I mean, there's going to be more and more.
Yeah,
and
there's going to be a million of these.
Every company now is getting on this bandwagon to make it easier for people to, start using AI with their stuff. So
it's sort of like, using like a command line tool instead of doing an actual API call. That's really all that's happening here.
Well, this whole thing feels very like early internet. Like everything's just moving super fast. Stuff's coming out like crazy quickly. And we're just going to see where it goes. And eventually we'll hit a leveling out probably at some point.
Yeah, where people are like, nah, we don't need to use that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's basically how it goes. Well, I don't know. You guys got any other questions about MCP servers I can answer for you? Because I'm somewhat of a vibe coding expert, if you can't tell by my glasses.
I totally vibe code, so like,
Yeah. Cool. Well, I would recommend too, if you guys have a chance, go out and find local meetups, local events. I've met some pretty amazing people over the past week and a half. And that's purely just from like seeing people in real life and, talking to their face.
IRL?
Yeah,
You want people to
IRL.
go
It's
outside?
this new thing, I know. But
Whoa.
yeah, pretty awesome. So with that, I mean, I guess that's all we got for today. You can make your own decision about if you think MCP servers are a game changer or a time waster. I'm definitely going to use them a little bit more for things like integrating with Supabase, so I don't have to write those SQL queries anymore. But in many ways, I think they're sort of overrated at this point. And maybe that'll change over time, but I just think maybe that's just I haven't used them enough to understand like the productivity of them, but I just feel like they're not doing too much for me. So what do you guys think? And security, I think, is a factor too.
Well, I think it's like everything else. It just depends on use case. I could definitely see like value in them, especially like if you're doing certain development and, it makes it easier to access certain things while you're doing that. Or like if you're a company and you need to integrate stuff, I could see that being, important. But like, yeah, it just depends on use case, like everything else, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, with that, thank you guys for tuning in. If you are interested in, thank you, Fast Break Digital. I think that's Charles. Gives control on the automation. Yep, it gives you more control of your automation for sure. Anyway, if you guys are interested in hanging out with us every Saturday after these calls, we have an Inner Circle Elite for the most elite vibe coders out there. We discuss everything from how to code in React to how to find clients to how to start your own freelance business as a web developer or anything else that you need help with, whether that's mindset or motivation or really anything coding related. We love, helping you guys become the developers that we know you are deep down inside. So we have a Inner Circle Elite you can see on the screen. If you just go to codenoobs.io, you can check out all the information about that. It gives you access to a 24/7 private Telegram group, as well as a 2-hour call every Saturday with us, where you can ask us questions. We do code reviews, all that good stuff, and we code along together. Talk about stuff like this, like MCP servers. So if that's for you, check out codenoobs.io. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out. We will see you next Saturday. And enjoy the rest of your week and get those vibe codes going, man. Code out some cool stuff. You can code so much so fast now. It's like, I don't know why you're not. So
yeah, it is insane.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Peace out. Enjoy your Saturday, and we'll see you next week.
Later, fellas.
Later.